Welcome back, everybody. What a day it's been. Thank you so much for everybody who's been able to join us for our virtual SMARTNet Sustainability Showcase. We were a bit sad not to be able to meet at Lansdowne Park this year, but thanks to some help from Bond Exec and Impact AV, we've been able to give you this amazing online platform. So I hope you've enjoyed. We've still got a bit of time left. We've got one last presentation here on this stage. There's another one at 3 on the expert stage talking about B Corps. And of course, the exhibitors are around till 4 o'clock. And then don't forget about our networking rooms from 4 to 5. That's going to be your chance to chat and display your knowledge. So don't forget about that. So right now, our last presentation, and we're going to talk about energy evolution. It's definitely been words that's been on everyone's tongue recently. How can we evolve? How can we get to those targets that we need to get to by 2030 and beyond to 2050? And I'm happy to bring in one of our speakers, Janice Ashworth. She's definitely been looking at that and thinking about that quite a bit. Janice has been working professionally in energy sustainability for quite some time. She currently works as a project manager on the City of Ottawa's climate change team, where she focuses on existing building programs and financing solutions. She was the founding general manager of both Ottawa Renewable Energy Co-op and Co-Energy Co-op, where she was responsible for business development of solar and retrofit projects, management, and financing. In her time with energy cooperatives, Janice was named a 40 Under 40 business leader and was awarded the 2017 Solar Woman of Distinction. She has been a community organizer with Ecology Ottawa and Ecology Action Centre. Janice has a master's in environmental studies from Dalhousie University. She's an enthusiastic gardener, volunteers as a coordinator at the community farm Beatbox, and I think she also does some cross-country skiing. Please join us in welcoming Janice to the Sustainable stage. Come on in, Janice.
You're muted, Janice.
Okay, now can you hear me okay?
Yep, good.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So welcome to this afternoon. Today I'm going to speak to you about taking action on climate change and what the City of Ottawa is doing for their climate change programs. Got an exciting announcement at the end of the presentation, so do stick around until the very end. I understand I'll be giving a presentation for half an hour, and you can put your questions in the chat and we'll talk about those for the last 15 minutes or so. So today I'm going to start with a background, looking at where Ottawa's greenhouse gas emissions come from, what it will take to reduce those emissions by 100% by 2050, which is what is agreed to in the Paris Agreement, and the benefits of taking action and how we can each take action. So climate change in Ottawa, the climate change master plan, as we've seen in the last number of years, there are noticeable consequences of climate change in Ottawa, from floods to tornadoes to extreme heat. So this is the reason why we're needing to shift our emissions in a downward direction, as well as to become more resilient to climate change and the increasing impacts that we will continue to see. We've done an analysis of the changing weather patterns in Ottawa and found that, not surprisingly, we will be seeing earlier springs, more extreme heat days, so 4 times the level of extreme heat days, which means days above 30 degrees. We're averaging about 11 days now, and we're expecting to see that go up to 45 or 44 days by 2050. Of days above 30 degrees. We'll see later falls, we'll see shorter winters with reduced snowfall by about 20%, and fewer very cold days. We'll also see more extreme events like extreme heat, extreme like tornadoes, floods, large amounts of precipitation. So that is what we can expect in Ottawa. We'll see an annual increase in precipitation by about 8%, and increase of about 14% of a maximum daily precipitation in any one event. So within the climate change team in Ottawa, we have both mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation is reducing our emissions. Adaptation is preparing for changing weather. Within those teams, we have various focuses. So emission reduction targets, emissions inventories, and energy evolution strategy, which I'll be speaking about today. That's all on the mitigation side. On the adaptation side, the climate projections, what I just showed you, that's complete. There's an ongoing vulnerability assessment that is that's happening within our team right now that will feed into the climate resiliency strategy coming out the end of this year. The priorities for the next 5 years include the following. So climate mitigation, which is the energy evolution strategy. So implementing that. Climate resiliency, implementing a climate lens. So that's into all of the into the official plan, which is ongoing right now. There's also a climate lens within adaptation, or within the asset management, sorry, and that's within all of our master plans, as well as all staff reports that go forward that are for significant spending. That's being implemented now. There's a carbon budget component to our climate change master plan. There's a carbon sequestration component to it as well. There's private action, which we'll be speaking about today. That's encouraging all individuals to do their part. And then there's governance and accountability to make sure that this is a long-standing and consistent strategy. Greenhouse gas emissions for Ottawa from 2019, this was from the 2019 inventory, breakdown almost half and half between transportation emissions and buildings. So not surprisingly, there's gasoline and diesel contribute 37% of our emissions, and natural gas is 38%. So that's heating our buildings, heating our water, and then moving our cars around are predominantly the sources of emissions. There's also some, of course, from aviation fuel, from agriculture, and from waste, and a little bit from electricity. So interestingly, all the electricity we consume is only 4% of our emissions, and that's because our electricity systems in Ontario are quite low carbon. Oops, sorry, that skipped ahead. So looking at our community emissions between 2012 and 2019, since we've been tracking them, they have come down by about 12%, but you can see they've actually started ticking back upwards in the last 2 years. And you can see those dots to the right of where they need to be going. So we've set targets within the Climate Change Master Plan of reducing our emissions by 43% by 2025. So that's a steep drop from now till then, and it keeps going down at that trajectory until 2040. We're at 96% of our emissions reduced by 2040 and 100% by 2050. So this is really a 20-year focus and starting immediately on a very steep downward direction. So those targets that you saw on the last slide are for the community as a whole. For the corporation, which is the municipality and the municipal infrastructure, they've set slightly faster targets of achieving 100% by 2040. And that's to show a bit of leadership at the municipal level to demonstrate how to get there. So the vision is to have Ottawa powered by clean, renewable energy. So that's all of our heating needs, all of our electricity needs, all of our transportation needs, and the opportunity that exists there that I'll explain a bit more is really an economic development one, because as we produce our own energy and consume and reduce our consumption of energy, we can create local jobs in both the energy conservation space as well as the renewable energy generation space. So what will it take to achieve those targets? The energy evolution strategy came up with a pathway to getting to, achieving those targets set in the climate change master plan. And it breaks down this way. So you can see the largest chunks are transportation in that kind of maroon category, and buildings in the orange. Those are the two biggest components of where we need to be reducing our emissions to achieving our targets. Not surprisingly, they're also our largest sources of emissions that you saw in that graph a few slides back. There's also, of course, some from electricity, so scrubbing all those last emissions out of the electricity system, because we still do use natural gas for some electricity generation. And there's also some from waste and renewable natural gas. So that's an opportunity to produce biogas, or also known as renewable natural gas, from our solid waste from both our landfill facilities, including in our organics collection, and also our sewage. That's actually a pretty big opportunity to produce biogas from our sewage treatment plant. The top 5 actions that came out of the modeling that we did to reduce greenhouse gas emissions are: number 1, electrifying personal vehicles. And I understand today there's been some presentations on electric vehicles and the opportunities, so that's great. That's the single biggest opportunity that we can individually do. Number two is retrofitting our homes, and I'm going to speak to that one in particular towards the end of the presentation today. Also, we can divert our organics. So using their green bin is really important from a climate point of view, as well as from a waste capture, recovery point of view. We can retrofit our existing commercial vehicles. So so that's having our commercial, that should say commercial buildings, not vehicles. Retrofitting commercial buildings like office buildings, recreation facilities, having them use less heat and ventilation. And then transitioning to zero emissions commercial fleets. So that's all the trucks and delivery vans and garbage trucks, police vehicles. Those need to all also be electric or zero emissions. The benefits from reducing greenhouse gas emissions are many. So reducing the impact of climate change, from those extreme weather events, as well as the equity impacts of climate change affecting some of the more vulnerable people more extremely. There's also an opportunity to improve the local economy and have job creation, like I mentioned, from conservation jobs to energy generation jobs. Also health improvements. When we stop combusting fossil fuels, we will see improved air quality, and we'll also see quieter streets. So we'll be able to have, better sleeps and for people who live on busy streets. We'll see energy security and resilience by having that local generation. And we'll see equity and inclusion. So that's an opportunity to ensure that the vulnerable are protected and are part of the solution. There's also a financial benefit to society. So this will be expensive to invest in all those changes in electric vehicles, in building retrofits, will cost us on about $31.8 billion in today's dollars. And that mostly needs to be invested over the next 20 years. However, if the net societal return is 12.4 billion above and beyond. So we get our 31.8 billion back, and then we get another 12.4 billion on top over the life of those assets. So that's really an opportunity for local economic prosperity. You can see that return is coming by way of energy savings, so energy conservation, also from local generation, so local wind and solar and geothermal. And then there's some operations and maintenance savings as well, and some carbon price savings. And actually this financial analysis was done when the carbon price, before the most recent carbon price announcement from the federal government. So it doesn't include the most recent increase that has been proposed. So that number will only look better. In graphical format, that looks like this. So our investments are on the top above the axis. They're blue investment bars. You can see mostly they're being invested between now and 2041. After that, we taper off our investments, but we really reap in the savings. The savings are the orange, the revenues are the green, and that's really, you can see there's a tipping point at around the year 2032 that our savings outweigh our investments at that point, and beyond that, there's a net positive gain to society from that year on. So this is kind of the financial opportunity, but it does involve us spending significant amounts of capital now and for the next 20 years. How can you take action? So as an individual, switch to an electric vehicle. Our modeling shows that by 2030, 90% of new vehicles purchased need to be electric in order to meet the targets. So that's really faster than the current penetration rates. And so we need to see both mandates from the provincial and or federal governments to achieve that, as well as various incentives. The city is working on installing a number of electric vehicle charging stations along the right-of-way, like you see in this picture, along the curb, and that's to enable people who live in apartment buildings or condos where they don't have access to their own, space to install a charger, to enable them to get electric vehicles as well, and to reduce that sort of range anxiety for people who are coming downtown and looking for a place to charge their car. So that's the role the city is playing. We're also about to announce a new hire, a new person on our team who will be working on our electric vehicle programs. Also, we can drive less. So, driving electric is good, but driving less is better. Using your bike or walking for short trips, taking transit, which is also increasingly becoming electric. Using a car share instead of owning a vehicle is a way that a lot of people find they're able to get by without owning their own vehicle. So those are all great choices, because our modeling shows that we need to be using, shifting more of our vehicle use onto the electric model, but also using vehicles just generally less. And so that those sustainable options are better choices. Using your green bin. So like I mentioned, organics in the landfill produce methane, which goes into the atmosphere. However, organics in the green bin are used currently to create compost, but in future scenarios, we imagine that being captured to create biogas or renewable natural gas, and keeping that out of keeping that out of the landfill and out of the atmosphere, but also using it to offset natural gas in the pipeline. So using your green bin, if you're in a home, or even more importantly, if you're in an apartment, because that's currently not, the uptake in apartments and condos is not as good as in single family residences. And at the office too, helping your office choose, create green bin programs and have pickup. Also, choosing less packaging, only buying what you need. That, of course, helps our waste reduction intentions, and sharing and borrowing via materials as much as possible. That helps with reducing the waste that goes to our landfill. Adapting to the impacts of climate change, so protecting your home from flooding is a good place to start, and there are programs to support some of that upgrade that would be required at the individual level. Some backflow prevention incentives. There's also being safe during extreme weather events, listening to your alerts and finding a safe place and a safe place to shelter in place. And then be safe in the sun and outdoors. We will increasingly get hot weather days there'll be a risk of heat stroke. So we need people to be smart and thinking about their own protection as our climate increasingly becomes those, moves towards that extreme heat. Making your home more energy efficient. So this is where I'm going to focus a good chunk of the presentation. There are a number of things you can do. Programmable thermostats are great, allowing you to turn the heat down at night or when you're not in the building. Attic insulation, simple. Often it's either roll-in bats like this or blown-in cellulose, which is very cheap and very simple to install. Caulking and weather stripping, also really simple and very affordable to do on your own. It's just, sealing up the cracks around your windows, your doors, any penetrations through the outside wall, including attic hatches or fans, like bathroom fans. Those are all places for leaks of air into the building. Those plastic seals on windows help, especially during the winter, as do thermal curtains, to prevent that conduction and convection of heat through the window. Insulated external doors. If your door is not an insulated door, it's definitely effective and cost effective to replace it with an insulated one. Low flow toilets and shower heads and faucets are easy to install and cost effective to reduce your water usage as well as your hot water usage. Hot water heater blankets. So those are basically just a sleeping bag that goes over your hot water tank and can make it more insulated. Replacing appliances with Energy Star appliances. So that's your fridge, that's your stove. There's lots of opportunities for improving energy efficiency in our appliances. And then of course, LED light bulbs. There's lots of options for that now of different types of bulbs for different uses, but they do consume a fraction of the old incandescents and even a fraction of the fluorescent light bulbs. So those are widely available and very cost effective now. These are all simple things that we can do kind of DIY. I'm going to talk about a deeper retrofit opportunity in a second. So some larger projects. So our modeling in energy evolution shows that by 2040, we need to retrofit 98% of homes. So everybody needs to be involved. And those retrofits need to reduce our thermal consumption by 70%. So it's not just going to be the things I mentioned on the previous slide. There's going to be some deeper insulation retrofits that need to be done. They also need to use 30% less electricity from today. Mind you, that does not include the additional electricity that we'll be adding for heat pumps and electric vehicle chargers. So 30% reduced from today's consumption, and then adding a couple of loads that are not currently on the electric bill. So how do you get 70% less heat consumption in your home? You insulate your walls, you insulate your foundation. Your basement from the outside is best, but from the inside works too. Just make sure you do the structural analysis there to make sure your foundation will be structurally fine to do that. But from the outside is the best, and that can also prevent some of the flooding concerns. It prevents the water from infiltrating into the home if you insulate around the outside. Air sealing, so that's really simple stuff. That's weather stripping, that's caulking, that's sealing up those gaps, getting the tight fits around your doors and your windows and all the other penetrations through the home. Through the home, including into the attic. So that's, any pocket lights that might be going into the attic. Those are also places for air leakage. Heat pumps, so that's heat for, that's replacing your furnace with a heat pump, an electric heat pump, and that's a much more efficient form of providing heat. It's also based on electricity, which is a low carbon source, and it provides air conditioning as well, which is a nice added bonus for those extreme heat days that we'll be seeing more and more of. Heat pumps can be both air source and ground source. In our modeling, we assumed there would be some of each, and that about a quarter of the folks would install ground source, and about 3/4 would install air source. There are increasingly efficient air source heat pumps. I have one at my house that's cold climate heat pump. It runs to -25, and it works really well. So those are available, increasingly available, and increasingly efficient. There's also electric hot water heaters. So if your hot water heater is currently natural gas, switching it to electric is better for sure from a carbon point of view. There's also options for heat pump hot water heaters, which is an even more energy efficient form of heating water. And solar rooftops. So putting solar panels on roofs. We've assumed that a number of roofs across a number of houses will install solar panels, include up to about 5 kilowatts for net metering purposes. Now, if you can fit more than 5 and you consume more than 5, then that's great. But that's what we're modeling, is that about a quarter of houses will install a solar rooftop as well. So looking at our energy use in our homes today, look at this far right side of this graph for the residential buildings. In 2016, most of our emissions come from natural gas. Most of our emissions from our homes, that is. A little bit from electricity, a little bit from fuel oil and propane that are used for heating in some of the rural areas of Ottawa. But predominantly, we are natural gas energy. We're using natural gas for both our space heating and our water heating. And you can see by 2050, we need to get to almost none. Really, we have to eliminate all of those emissions from all of those fossil fuels. What do we use our heating, our sources of emission? Where do our emissions come from in terms of end use? So again, space heating and water heating is predominantly what we use energy for in our homes, and that's where our emissions come from. About 2/3 or 3/4 space heating and 1/4 water heating is typically the rule of thumb. From a financial point of view, what does that look like for an individual? So investing in all these measures that we've talked about, so insulation, heat pumps, air sealing, water tanks, those have a positive return on investment. So looking at this graph on the left, that gray line in the middle is the payback. So this is assuming all the buildings, 98% of buildings, are retrofit by about 2040. You can see that gray line of the net savings kind of dips down below as we're still making those investments, but then it comes back up above the positive line and increasingly gets positive into the future as those investments pay off and give us savings on our energy bills. Looking at it from a measure-specific basis, so building envelope, it does have a payback, but it's about the same, but a little bit slower than sort of all measures bundled. So that's good. So investing in insulation, attic insulation, basement insulation, wall insulation, those are all going to be part of your building envelope improvements, and all those air sealing tricks. Heat pumps, however, right now, and domestic hot water heat pumps have a negative return on investment. So this is where we need to be working on ways to drive down that cost so that we can encourage individuals to put in those heat pumps. When you do your building retrofit, your envelope first, your heat pump can be sized smaller, so it actually is a better return on investment. And if you're already planning on either installing air conditioning or replacing an air conditioner, it's a perfect time to get a heat pump, because then the incremental cost is much lower because you're already going to be investing in that air conditioner. And a heat pump is essentially an air conditioner as well as a heater. It's the same unit that does both. Solar PV has a positive return. That's because we can offset our electricity bills by putting solar on the roof and generating our own heat. Our own electricity. So that's a nice thing to add in the mix to sort of bundle together with the other measures to increase the payback. There are some rebates and incentives available for home energy efficiency. So Enbridge has some funds towards smart thermostats and energy efficiency upgrades. You can get up to $5,000 for energy efficiency upgrades. They also have free improvements for income qualifying customers. The Save on Energy program, that's through the IESO or available through Hydro Ottawa. That has the home assistance program, as well as some free energy efficiency upgrades, including LED lights and insulation for income eligible electricity customers. And then the federal government announced something in December that they're calling the Home Energy Retrofit Program, and that opened December 1st, and it's providing $5,000 to improve home energy efficiency for a number of measures, but it does require an EnerGuide efficiency assessment first. So make sure you get that EnerGuide audit first to be eligible, but it is open as of December 1st. And I think the website should be coming up for applications sometime in this month, in February. They predated they had the date of the eligibility start as of December 1st, but didn't actually have the intake portal figured out just yet. The City of Ottawa is also now, I can announce today, as of a big announcement yesterday from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the city is pleased to be launching its first Better Homes Loan Program. And so this will allow the city to invest up to $75,000 in people's homes, making them more energy efficient. The technology that will be eligible include insulation, air sealing, windows, appliances, solar panels, etc. So we're making it pretty broad in terms of energy efficiency technologies. We are requiring that all applicants undergo do an air sealing up improvement because that is the most cost-effective measure to keep the heat in the building. As you accrue the savings from the energy savings, the investment in the building is paid off through the property tax bill. So the investment is tied to the property and stays with whoever is in that building, because they are the ones benefiting from the savings. So just looking at kind of our housing stock and where we want to focus this program, I did an analysis and broke it down by row houses, duplexes, and singles, and found out that, and by age, by vintage. So we broke them down by these different age categories. So we were looking for the oldest homes because those are the ones that are the most energy inefficient. So that's called Vintage 4. And we found that we have a number of row houses as well as a number of single family homes that are in Vintage 4. And so that's where we're going to be focusing the attention for the first launch of the program, because they're the worst energy performers. Now, everyone will be eligible. It's just there will be a focus on these vintages and these areas for our outreach campaigns for the Better Homes Loan Program. So some priority neighborhoods are listed here. These are where we identified that there were a number of those vintages of homes. So some of the older neighborhoods, not surprisingly, Manor Park, Old Ottawa South, Overbrook, Linden Lee, New Edinburgh, Glebe, Dow's Lake area, Sandy Hill, Centertown, Byward Market, Old Ottawa East. There's some older row homes, especially in those neighborhoods. And for older singles, we're looking at Chapel Hill, Whitehaven, Queensway Terrace, Crystal Bay, Lakeview Park, Braemar Park, Bel Air Heights, Copeland Park, Hunt Club, Parkwood Hills, City View, Elmvale, Rothwell Heights, Carlington, and Civic Hospital area. So those are the areas that we identified as having a number of these older homes that would be priorities for the program. But like I said, not only everyone is eligible. So if you have questions about it or you're interested, please do connect with us. We have a newsletter. You can go to ottawa.ca/climate change and sign up for our e-newsletter. You can also email us at energyevolution@ottawa.ca with your interest in the program or in any of the things I've mentioned here. We have upcoming engagement opportunities as well. So on February 23rd, there will be a climate change presentation about how it engages into the new official plan. Also, actually, I should mention on February 11th, there will be a few of us speaking about the programs that we've got at the city as well, and more details about the Better Homes Loan Program, as well as some of our electric vehicle work and high performance development standards. That will be on February 11th at the Green Drinks. So that's run through SMARTNet Alliance that Nick can tell you more about. There's also some engagement opportunities you can learn about at our website, engage.ottawa.ca. And those are focusing on the high performance development standard, which is our standard for new buildings and making our new buildings performing better than code, and on our climate resiliency strategy as well. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I'll pass it back to Nick to moderate the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Janice. Great presentation. Great to hear about all the amazing initiatives. I know at SMARTNet Alliance, we're extremely excited to see Energy Evolution not only passed unanimously on October 27th, but also rolling out with an amazing staff. You know, yourself, Emma, who was in your booth earlier, Mike Fletcher, you know, Rebecca Hagan, who's been chatting with our members about the high performance development standard. Just a reminder to everybody, we are back with the Energy Evolution team February 11th. So if you haven't had enough of these virtual events by then, we're going to be rolling a virtual green drinks with the Energy Evolution team. So highly recommend that. I'm going to go ahead and put that link into chat so that you can register and make sure you hold your spot, because I'm sure the spaces are going to go like wildfire, and we won't have quite as much room as we do on a platform like this. So thanks so much, Janice. Let me just take a look and see what questions are popping up here in the chat here. So someone's asking, why is the city asking us to take individual measures when it's still sprawling and building more roads? The best measure, ? Vote the sprawlers out. So what are some thoughts on that, Janice?
Yeah, I mean, there is some interesting debate, especially right now, around the growth management strategy and the official plan and the urban boundary. The city is forced by the province to accept more population. As people immigrate into Canada, the cities municipalities in general are required to accommodate those new residents. And how that accommodation happens is also fairly restricted by legislation, although the official plan is the document that does dictate where that growth will happen. There is definitely interest in, I would say for many of the staff and councillors, in increasing intensification. However, it's very difficult to require. The city doesn't have any authority over existing property owners and requiring them to do anything in terms of building higher, building more dense, adding units. They can only just incentivize. And so if individuals in the city want to see reduced sprawl, they need to encourage increased density. So that's the real challenge that planners and politicians, I think, have, is they don't have, they can't tell anyone what to do with their building. They can just sort of encourage and educate. But city is forced to provide space for population growth, which is actually fairly significant. The city is expecting to see, based on the numbers the province is giving us, a 50% growth between now and 2050.
Yeah, that's a really balancing act, and we know that there's that kind of balance between growth and sustainability, right? So definitely look forward to seeing how we're able to do that. Another question, kind of regarding the Better Home Loans program. Someone was wondering, does that mean when you buy a house new to you that it would come with a loan against it through the taxes, almost like a lien against it? So yeah, maybe just talking a bit more about that Better Home Loans program.
Yeah, it does use the lien process. So if there is an unpaid, or if there is an ongoing, repayment for that Better Homes loan, then yes, it would flip to the next owner at the time of purchase. Now, what we've seen is that often a lot of homes, a lot of sellers of their home will often try to, or prefer to just pay down the rest of the loan at that point. So if they sell the home, they might just wipe the lien off the property or off the parcel to not slow down the transaction for the home sale. But in theory, it would pass to the new owner. That's right. And the benefit of that is that then the paybacks they can be stretched out longer, so we can amortize those investments over a longer period of time, which is really reflective of that longer term savings that you get from things like insulation in your walls, where that insulation is keeping your building warm for the next 50 plus years. So it makes sense to amortize that over a longer period of time, but individuals don't know if they'll be staying in that home for that long stretch of time for the payback period. So this is a comforting way to say, whoever is benefiting from the savings will be the one who is obliged to repay the loan, not just the one who makes the decision to make the investment.
Yeah, that's great. And, we're looking forward to working hand in hand with the city for the rollout of the Better Home Loans program. I know quite a few of our members are excited to roll up their sleeves and get involved in that. So, that's going to be quite exciting as we move forward. We've been waiting for, homeowners have been waiting for that for quite a while. And, as we talk here, we've got 8 years and 10 months or 11 months to get rolling on our 2030 targets. So, hopefully those homeowners can get out there, get those loans, and it doesn't have to go against your person now. It can go against the property. So no reason not to start to think about all those energy efficiencies. One question is someone wants to do solar panels. So are there incentives generally in the near future, or will the Better Home Loans program allow for solar?
Yep. So solar is an eligible technology under the Better Home Loan program. It's also eligible under the federal grant program that's available right now. So if you are looking at installing solar, I would recommend that you take a look at the federal program and talk to some solar installers, because they can help you get started with the energy audit that's required, as well as getting your name on the applicant list for that $5,000 grant that's available from the federal government, but does require an energy audit. And I've heard that they will. They have about 700,000 grants to give out, so it won't stretch as far as perhaps, I'm not sure how long it'll be available for. Basically, it might just be this year.
Yeah, and in my land, we've got the guys from Demand Renewables as well as Exicon Solar over in the exhibitor hall. So definitely, you've got a bit of time. Definitely head over there and chat with them about potentials, because as I understand, they can get your project rolling now, and it can be backdated. So one user was asking, when will the home loans program be available?
Yeah, we just found out yesterday, so you guys are getting news fresh off the press. But yeah, I do expect I'll be hiring someone actually to run the program and launching that probably in the spring. So I hope to have some, we will be accepting names on a list. So if you are interested, get your name on a list, get us your address. We'll put you in the queue as we prepare the documents, and then we expect to be able to start rolling out with loans, possibly as early as April or May.
Fantastic. Another question someone was asking, what will be the interest and repayment time? Not sure if you know those details, but wanted to, while we're chatting about it.
Yeah, I mean, what we're planning to do is actually provide lower interest rates for deeper retrofits. So we want to use that as an incentive for people to go deeper with their reductions. I don't have them specifically today, because it will depend on how far you do your reductions, and also the terms of the financing that we get from FCM, which was only just announced yesterday. So that will, I can't answer specifically, but I can say that it will be competitive and quite low for a long term. So we are committed to offering fixed interest rates over a long term. The longer the deeper the retrofit, the longer the term of the loan as well, which allows for those savings to pay off the interest. So yeah, we will be offering lower interest and longer terms for deeper retrofits.
Yeah, that's some exciting news to hear, and great news for those who are in the City of Ottawa for homeowners. I did have a question regarding this, may be a bit of a tricky one. So they're asking, what is the expected cost for a vintage single-family home to do a full retrofit? Now that may be a bit tricky to answer, but wanted to address that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit tricky to answer. It depends which measures are included. So we picked the $75,000 range because we thought that would allow for most of the measures to be covered, to be included. However, we also have the other element to that is there is a 10% max of the value of the home. So if the home currently, I mean, unless finance is willing to release or to relax on that, but that's currently what we're looking at. So if the home is valued at $400,000, then the max would be $40,000 loan, at least the first time around. Now you can apply multiple times, and so how we would deal with secondary applicants is to be determined. But yeah, that's currently what we're looking at. So vintage 4, of course, it all depends on which measures you include, and especially on the biggest sort of unknown is whether or not there's a cavity with which you can blow in wall insulation, or if it's going to require wrapping the building in insulation from the outside. If there is a cavity and you can just blow in cellulose insulation, it's much more cost effective.
That's great, and invite that questioner to head over to our exhibitor hall, because you can chat with the Conscious Builder and Legua as well about that. And also, we're going to have a networking room about high performance housing with Chris Weisblock from EcoGen. So you can definitely pose those questions to them. They can probably start doing a full spreadsheet breakdown for you and get
those
really
guys
technical.
Are very qualified to do that kind of analysis.
Another question is, can the city be putting an end to the current situation of effectively forced installation of gas furnaces in new suburban developments? I know we're starting to see that in California and things like that, where they're moving away from gas. Maybe speak to a bit of that if you can.
Sure. So the question was saying, is mentioning that the city requires gas furnaces? Because I'd like to understand a bit more about.
Yeah, that's she's saying effectively forced installation of gas furnaces in new suburban developments.
Yeah,
so,
I'd like to understand a bit about the perspective, but yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. The high performance development standard is our approach. To encouraging better than code installations or better than code new developments. That will be discouraging gas furnaces. It will be providing incentives to install geothermal or heat pumps, very high insulation in buildings, going beyond code. So we will be discouraging the use of low efficiency, envelopes and gas furnaces. However, we don't have a mechanism currently that we've found to prevent gas pipelines from being installed in new subdivisions. We're exploring that, but we don't think that municipalities in Ontario have that authority. However, with the development standard, the high performance development standard, the project developer might very well just choose to not bother installing any gas appliances and no longer need the utility to service that new development.
Yeah, so we just had a rebuttal on that. Someone saying that there is a penalty to the developer, which gets passed on to the buyer currently if a new homeowner in a new development does not become an Enbridge customer. So just a
if
side
there's gas in the Yeah, I see. Yeah, no, that's really. I mean, these are real challenges that my colleague Rebecca is working mostly on this file, so I can't speak to it at length. But yeah, these kinds of like built-in systemic challenges, we need to be not only be eliminating them, but going well beyond the other way. So we are hoping that the high performance development standard, as well as the community secondary plans, we're working on some energy plans that are part of the secondary plans. And again, Rebecca can speak to that. So as new development lands are approved, the developer has to show how they're making them more energy efficient. And if and emissions, reducing emissions, and so with that, developers will be forced to think about, do they even need gas in the subdivision, in which case that penalty would be eliminated.
Yeah, and speaking to some of those systemic changes, that's something we're trying to do in SmartNet Alliance as well, by working with our members, working with different utilities, working with different government organizations, working with municipalities. So, definitely thanks for that question. And we've got one more here about transportation. So the questioner asked, you mentioned transport was another large source of emission. Are there any programs, incentives available addressing that issue?
Currently, there are not in Ottawa. I've been looking at some other municipalities that are trying to discourage transport during peak hours to reduce congestion. There are, the technology isn't quite up for things like large trucks anyways, for delivery trucks, transport trailers. There's not really great technologies that are zero emissions yet to replace those vehicles. So the best thing that Ottawa can do is work on the other fleets, like the smaller sedans and delivery vans. Those kinds of things are available in electric format. I just heard that Amazon is buying a bunch of electric vehicles. So those kinds of fleets we will be focusing on first. But yeah, eventually, when there are options for zero emissions, transport trucks and whatnot, then we will be moving that direction. I know for the city's own fleet, they're looking at some neat options that reduce diesel use for in diesel combustion engines. So that will be an interim measure to reduce the consumption of diesel before those fleets can be completely switched out for non-emitting options.
Fabulous. I think that wraps it up. Your colleague there did put the climate change newsletter into chat, so invite everybody to sign up for that, because there's some great information coming down the pipe. As we can see, we got a bit of a scoop here at the Sustainability Showcase about the Better Home Loans program, and we'll be working side by side with the city to see if we can get that out to more folks as well. And then also don't forget about our green drinks on February 11th. That is going to be dedicated to energy evolution. Janice is going to be joined by her colleagues Mike Fletcher and Rebecca Hagan. So thanks so much, Janice. It's great work that you're doing. Want to really thank you for being here and being a part of the solution as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you about 10 days time there on our virtual green drinks.
That's right. Yeah, look forward to that and talking more about this exciting program. Thanks for being the audience for the first announcement.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had quite a few people online today, and we'll be getting these presentations up on YouTube for everybody who's maybe been jumping around and back and forth to the different stages talking to the exhibitors. So people will have a chance to watch these again.
Perfect, great. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Nick for hosting, and we'll see you in the exhibitor booth.